Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, brought to you by Shure. Legendary microphones, cutting-edge wireless systems, premium earphones and headphones. Shure, the most trusted audio brand worldwide. For more information, go to Shure.com. And now your host, EYAL Levy.
This show is brought to you by URM Academy, the world's best education for rock and metal producers. You know us for Nail the Mix, but today I'm here to tell you about Ultimate Drum Production, our course that's going to completely transform the way you think about and record drums. You're going to be hearing a lot more about it in the coming weeks, but in the meantime, head over to ultimatedrumproduction.com to learn more. Hello, everybody. This podcast is cool because I am in Portland and hanging out with my friend, Mr. Kris Crummett. And we figured, let's do an episode. And what I like is that he's already been on the podcast a few times. He's done Nail the Mix. He's done a Fast Track with us. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff. We are familiar with each other. We're actually filming a new course. But, all the introductory stuff is out of the way, which means that unless we want to be really boring, we got to find new stuff to talk about, which means that we can go deeper. And that's what we did. And if I'm being honest, sometimes talking about microphones and gear get really, really boring for me. I think the real stuff is to find out somebody's motivations and what's behind everything that they're doing. Because if you don't have a good story and you don't have your tastes very well defined, then I feel like you're just kind of grasping, clutching, just aiming, I guess, blindly through an audio desert. I think your taste is what guides you. It's your North Star. And it's one of the most important things a producer or musician, an artist, anybody who creates can develop is that point of view, their unique point of view based on all their experience and their taste. This is what it means to be a true producer, is to use that point of view to help realize somebody else's vision. It's pretty deep when you think about it, but that's what we talk about. Without further ado, I give you Mr. Kris Crummett. Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. Welcome back. Well, actually, I'm in your place, but
yeah.
So welcome back to me, but welcome back to you.
Welcome back to you as well.
Thanks. Well, and thank you. When's the last time we did this? It was like 2015 or 16.
Yep. It would have been 15 or 16.
Wow. I've actually known you a while now.
Well, and then I did like a solo podcast.
Yeah, that was like
with
17.
You guys. Yep. But it's been a little bit.
Yeah. Well, that time that you hooked up my boot camp was in 2014.
Mm-hmm. That was before this studio was built.
Yeah.
You would have been sitting on my lawn right now.
So that's kind of a messed up reason you told me about, that you had to leave your last studio. Can we talk about that at all?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, that's not the only reason, but definitely part of it.
Well, so what we're talking about is that just there were quote unquote undesirables defecating in the parking lot all the time.
Yeah, there was
it would mess up. I guess you'd have people come by and have to step over that or step in it on their way to their cars, and
yeah, a lot of people camping out, and yeah.
I'm super security minded.
Yeah,
always have been. At my old studio, I don't know, I had like this crazy ass metal gate, and then also reinforced windows to where like they could stand like a 2x4 at 185 miles per hour, and then cameras inside, cameras outside, trained German Shepherd, a couple guns, like deadbolts on everything. And I feel like Florida and Oregon share the crackheads.
There's a lot of crackheads for sure. And there's a lot of people just, like camping out, and the guys would be drunk and passed out on the front door. No one was getting in the studio. I mean, we had bars on all the doors. We had cages on the doors, bars on all the windows. No one was going to get into the studio, but there was really no way to fence the parking lot. So it was like literally like a weekly car break-in, sometimes multiple times a week, that I was dealing with, and just a lot of stuff that made clients uncomfortable. So I had to get away from that. But that wasn't the only thing, honestly. There's a lot of factors. You know, I think honestly the biggest factor aside from that was just the fact that I wanted to own my space, and I was in a position where
That's fair enough.
Where I would rather just make an investment instead of paying someone rent. I had no problem doing the rent thing for a long time, but that wasn't going to happen in a place in the city like downtown. So
I feel like if you're going to pay someone rent, it better be an ideal situation.
exactly, and I just needed a little more peace.
Mm-hmm.
My clients needed a little more peace.
Yeah, I feel like anything that makes clients feel uncomfortable, like, for their personal safety, it's not conducive to a very great session. I don't know where I get
not
that
at all.
idea. I could be crazy.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, it's super important for people to feel comfortable and allow them to be artistic and not be thinking about real life stuff. I mean, that's part of coming to the studios. It's like a little bit of a work vacation for people, in the sense that like they need to escape all the things that are preventing them from being artistic and need to just make the art and get the job done. And any of that extra stuff is just getting in the way.
Did you ever think it was a security concern? I mean, you said you had bars on the windows, but were you worried about break-ins at the studio, or was it no one even knew it was a studio?
Well, people really didn't know it was a studio for the most part. I've always tried to keep my location off the map, like my exact location. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, it was secure. I mean, we had an alarm system. It really, and there was people, like there was multiple studios, and there was somebody there working pretty much 24/7.
Yeah.
Like there was always somebody there. But that didn't worry me too much. It was just the security of the parking lot and other stuff. Honestly, I think I was more worried about the roof caving in than people breaking in. Used to have nightmares. It was like a flat roof in Oregon is just like a rain catcher. And it was a super old 60s, 70s flat roof that I have no idea when the last time it was actually redone. And it leaked all the time. I had places in my live room that I just wouldn't put expensive mics because of the possibility of a leak. That leaks that kept coming back. I mean, that roof was probably 50% wet patch by the time I left. It was just awful.
I went to a studio in Oakland recently, Oakland, California.
Yeah.
And it's one of the nicest studios I've been in, but it was in Oakland. And so for people who aren't familiar, Oakland is a rough area. The security measures that they had in place were like huge doors. And the dude who owned it lived there. So he had this like bank vault door to get up to his living area. And it was just like
that's intense.
Bank vaults and like serious gates and cameras and like the whole nine, basically.
Yeah.
Because they had two SSL rooms, I believe, or maybe one was an API board or something. I don't remember exactly. But basically 2 huge control rooms with boards, massive live room, amazing facility just in the middle of a war zone. And so, yeah, they protected it like a war zone. He said that he was never really too worried about anything happening, though I don't believe it because all that security means you're worried about something happening. Yeah.
Well, you don't worry after you have the security, I guess, but
you should, but not as much. Did you hear what happened at Morrisound Studios?
The one in Florida?
Yeah, the one in Florida.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Was that an intern or something, or what was?
Wasn't
I forget
an intern.
How. Yeah.
But
they got emptied out, right?
Yes, they got totally. Well, they didn't take the SSL, but they took the power supply. It was someone who took a studio tour.
That's right.
And when they took the tour, they cased it out, found the weakness, which was the sliding glass door in the back, and then showed up at like 2 a.m. and took everything minus the SSL or the SSLs. I think they had 2. But the thing is that shit was all found.
Yeah.
In a warehouse in North Carolina, like a year later.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Apparently there were other studios' stuff in this warehouse.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So these guys were doing this.
It was just a professional operation.
Yeah,
Still in studio stuff.
but then putting it in a warehouse.
That's weird.
Yeah, what are you
I don't
going to do
know.
with it?
Did they have an eBay account or something? Or like,
I don't
never
know.
found any of that stuff?
I don't know about that part.
Yeah.
It just seems to me like a tough business to go into, ripping off high-end studio gear, because not that many people own high-end studio gear.
Yeah. And it's unique. And if you're a good studio owner, you've got all your serial numbers and keep all that stuff, all your receipts and everything. So
yeah, and the moment a big studio gets hit, everybody with a studio finds out about it.
yeah.
Kind of like when that Lamb of God guitar got stolen. Did you hear about that a few months ago?
No.
One of their like custom guitars got stolen.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, I do think it popped up on eBay or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
I don't know what people are thinking when they do that stuff.
Probably not thinking.
Yeah, definitely not thinking. Yeah, there's smarter ways to be a criminal.
I think that stealing stuff that's super customized and that someone well-known owns is probably not a good idea.
No, it's ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense at all.
It's not how I would go about it. But if you saw a picture of of the people who took the Lamb of God guitar, it definitely had that Faces of Meth kind of look.
Yeah. Desperate move.
Yeah.
Not a calculated move.
Yeah. I don't think it worked out too well. I mean, have you ever had just clients lift your shit?
I've had some small things disappear here and there.
Half the time when that happened, it was my fault. I just misplaced something.
Yeah, no, I've had that too, for sure, of like thinking like, where could this possibly be, unless someone took it and then a year later you're like, how did that get there? But
really start hating this one band, because I'm sure that one dude who was really weird took it and like developing this whole narrative in my head, and then I find it a year later under a mattress.
I try not to do that because my mind will run. Yeah, exactly. But I've there's been a couple situations where it was very clear that something was taken and who took it, but it's pretty rare. I mean, in 20 years, maybe once or twice. The weirdest one was there was a time period where my parents don't even know about this. Really, I mean, I guess they know.
I doubt they're going to listen.
They might. I thought that last time I did a podcast, and then my mom was like, "When did that happen? I don't remember that." And I'm like, Mom, you didn't know.
Here's another surprise for you.
Here's another one. There was a point where the studio was at my parents' house, and the only bathroom was in their house. This was a long, long time ago. And I was working with a client that at the time I didn't know was a heroin addict. I found it out later, but I did find out that literally all of their spoons had been taken. There's just no spoons. There's just no spoons anywhere in the house, in the studio, or anywhere. And it coincided with this guy leaving.
Did your mom ask you if you had seen the spoons?
Yeah. She knew about that. I don't remember what I said. I'm sure I had a dumb answer for it, but I knew what happened pretty quickly.
Wow.
Because I found a couple burnt ones. But in general, and I didn't know, and it was like decent silverware too. So I was like, for a long time in my head, I was just like, did he like pawn them somehow? Or did he just use them? I don't know. Probably not pawn them. I don't know how you could pawn spoons, but...
Well, if he only took the spoons...
Yeah.
It's not like he took all the silverware.
Yeah.
If he took only
spoons.
Took all the
spoons. I think there was probably only 8 spoons to begin with.
Well, I mean, how long was the session?
I knew that one. That's one of the few ones that I knew.
There was one...
He was there for a few weeks, so...
The most insane one that happened to me was when I had this back surgery in like 2012. And so I decided that I wasn't going to record for about a week while I recovered. And so I rented my place out to these other 2 producers while I lived at my place. So I was like, I'm just going to be in my room on drugs, and you guys can use this. The only rule is no strangers.
Yeah.
So guess what rule they broke?
Yeah.
So I think when I went for the follow-up, like I had the surgery and then a few days later I had to go in for a follow-up. When I went to the follow-up, that's when they brought some stranger over who was the mentor, quote unquote mentor for the artist that was recording. And that guy, I guess, saw the mic collection and he took a U87
Nice.
that didn't even belong to me. It belonged to Sukov. I had the mic locker at my house. So it had like my mics and Sukov's mics and Mark's mics. Well, some of his. They were mainly mine and Jason's. And the U87 was Jason's. So it wasn't even my shit, which made it even worse.
Yeah.
And I only discovered it because 2 weeks later, I went to do a session and I couldn't find a U87.
Yeah.
I was like, I called Jason. I was like, do you have the U87? Like, no. It's like, okay, I'll find it. I didn't let him know I was freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
Looked everywhere, no U87. I was like, it can't be. It had to have disappeared during this session. That's the only thing that happened, and I used it right before that.
Yeah.
So I called the two producers up, and I was like, hey, do you guys use the U87s? Because there's one missing. They were like, yeah, but we put them back. It's like, well, they're not here. Well, one of them's not here.
Yeah.
So they came back, and they were like white-faced. Like,
Yeah.
they were really scared. And they like looked under the couch and like tore everything up and couldn't find it. I was like, did anybody come over that wasn't supposed to come over?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one guy, but he was just an old guy. He wouldn't have taken it. So it turns out he took it. And he denied it at first. So what I did was I told them that they were planning on coming back to finish. And so their artist had left his instruments there.
Yeah.
So I told them that either they get me the mic back within 24 hours or all the instruments that belong to this artist are getting sold to pay for a new U87.
Yeah.
And they're not getting their files.
Yeah.
Because they didn't back them up or take them with them. It showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Showed up right like within 3 hours. So
That
was
sucks. It sucks that that's what it takes for
I know.
people to be honest or people to
Yeah.
sort things out with from their mistakes.
I didn't want to resort to that. But
I mean, but you have to. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an expensive mic. That's
Yeah.
not an SM57.
No,
it's not like,
and it wasn't even mine.
It's like $50. Okay, whatever. Yeah.
I would have let it go if it was a 57. Even if it was an SM7B, I would have probably let it go just because it's not worth possibly being wrong when making an accusation like that over $300.
Yeah.
But $3,000,
Big difference.
yeah, big difference. $3,000 that don't even belong to me. So it was something I was in the care of,
Yep.
which just made it that much worse. But yeah, it showed up 3 hours later in a public, in like a grocery bag, but it showed up.
Man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that musician dude couldn't look me in the face. He was doing the averted face thing the whole time. That whole thing made me feel really weird and uncomfortable too, because you hear about stories like that where someone ends up getting shot over something of that kind of value.
Yep.
Like you ask for the thing back, and then it turns into one of those stories where some sort of like dispute between business partners and ends up in someone getting shot. And in Florida, who I mean, sounds like a Florida story.
Yeah.
So
right.
Yeah. So protect your shit is the moral of the story.
No, I know. I can't imagine the stress of having like a full-time studio for hire.
Yeah, it sucked. Well, after that, I installed the cameras.
Yeah.
And that changed everything. And I let people know. I would show them the cameras and also just like hint that there were hidden ones.
Yeah.
Which there were.
Yeah.
And I felt like a dick saying that stuff at first. But it was like, it's going to be awkward for 5 minutes when I like threaten them with the cameras. But then they'll just know. And we'll never have to talk about it again.
Yeah, and if people don't understand, then they're probably not the people that you want there.
Yeah, I did not enjoy having to bring that up though with new clients. But I would just like, as part of a tour of the place, I would just be like, and there's that and there's that. It's a live room. We got cameras.
Yeah.
And a couple hidden cameras, and here's the mics.
Just toss it in there.
Yeah, exactly. My dog will bite if you take
man.
an U87.
I think I'm more afraid of your dog than the guns.
Dude, she's so nice.
I'm sure she is.
She is. I would make people afraid of her just on principle, but
yeah,
she's like a total sweetheart. Never bit a client.
That's good.
No, I actually got her trained to not bite clients, because that was also one of my greatest fears, was having a German Shepherd maul a client.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Because you've got new people coming in all the time.
And stuff. Idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or some dudes have like this phobia of dogs, where they're just petrified. The moment they see a dog, they're just petrified. And that makes a dog perk up and see that it's like, food.
I know.
Or something.
Because I'm a little bit one of those people.
Did you have a bad dog experience?
Not the same as most people that are justified to have a fear of dogs.
Just not a big fan?
No, I actually have no problem with dogs, and I'm a lot better around dogs now as a 30-year-old. Yeah, I had a weird dog growing up, but it wasn't that bad. And yeah, I don't know. I had a friend who was attacked by a dog. I think that was watching him get bit in the stomach by a dog when we were like, whatever, 5th, 6th grade. That was a little rough. I think that was part of it.
Well, I think people don't appreciate that they have this predator living in their house.
Yeah.
I bought a cage for mine. I needed to put her in it this one time recently because I was going to be gone for 16 hours.
Yeah.
And 16 hours is way too long to let her roam the house.
Yeah.
She'd fuck it up.
Yeah.
She bent it like the Incredible Hulk. Like,
dang.
It's amazing what they can do when they want to.
Yeah.
Like when they're left to their own devices and they're just not trying to please you, but they're just being animals.
Yeah.
Like, they're brutal.
And that's, I think my thing, my part of my fear for a long time was just it wasn't about not trusting dogs. It was about not trusting people. And I just didn't trust people to take care of their dog or train their dog. So if I see a dog, if I don't feel this way as much now. I spent a lot of time. I had a friend who bought a bigger dog 6 or 7 years ago, and that dog was awesome and got me a lot more comfortable around bigger dogs. That could be, the kind of dog that could just rip your neck off if they wanted to. But I just didn't trust people. If I see your dog and I see a dog that could be potentially violent, it's like I don't know what you did. I don't know if you trained him.
I think that's fair.
And I don't feel that way as much now because I just feel more comfortable around bigger dogs. But it was definitely not so much a fear of dogs as a fear of
shitty owners.
Yeah, shitty owners. Yeah.
I think that's fair. That's fair, actually, and accurate. That's one thing that I've noticed because we put so much time into training my dog, like put a lot of money into it, sent her to like that boot camp for 6 weeks and like continually re-up the training and like really put a lot of money and effort into making sure that she was good.
Yeah.
And she's great. But because of that, I see what people don't do, or I see them reinforcing bad behaviors or things like that. And it's like, yeah, you are a shitty owner and your dog is either going to get killed or hurt somebody or just annoy the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate.
I know. Yeah. Some dogs just, we have neighbors that they're better now, but they had 4 dogs that they just left outside all day and all night. And it was just.
That sounds like terror.
Yeah.
They would probably terrorize kids and.
Oh, yeah. Barking at everybody all the time. And it's not the dog's fault. Like, it's not their fault that they're freaking locked outside. Like,
no. I remember when I was a kid,
Or that they
biking.
weren't trained, or that they
No, it's not
don't
the
know right
dog's
from
fault.
wrong. It's a freaking dog. Like,
But did you ever have this when you were a kid? Like you'd be biking in a neighborhood and there'd be like the one dog that was just,
yeah, you'd cross the street.
yeah. And
Yep.
you know that one dog that
Yeah.
was just,
Big dog, short fence.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he might come at you. So like anytime you would get near the house, you'd have to think about whether or not you'd have to like scan to see if,
Oh, yeah.
that dog's around
Yep.
or what's going on. Just like always calculating if that dog is nearby, if he's going to notice you, like what the fuck's going to happen.
Yep. I had a dog like that was on my way to elementary school and just like basically anywhere I went in the house I grew up, for sure. It's just a huge dog, short fence, old fence, always up on top of it, like could easily jump it if it wanted to. Never did. Never actually like chased me, but always.
It's not so bad. You
Always.
never actually got chased. It's still,
No, I mean,
idea.
I actually had by a different dog, but yeah, the dog that bit my friend jumped a fence and just
went for it.
yep,
Ugh. How bad was it?
it was pretty bad. He went to the hospital. I mean, he was fine, but it definitely like punctured his bowel and like,
Oh, damn.
dude, it was like crazy. Yeah, it's straight up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad.
Like a serious bite.
Yeah.
I had a dog that bit my brother in the stomach once, but he deserved it. I have a brother that's 10 years younger, and when he was like 5 or 6 or 8 or something,
Yeah.
he was just a hellion, and he would like put on full hockey gear or like a baseball catcher uniform, and
Yeah.
then just go fuck with the dog and like try to make it crazy. And
Yeah,
it
I
would
don't
be
like that.
it wouldn't be it's like you not funny but funny at the same time, because like he's 8 years old and he's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, in full gear, and just like, I mean, I don't think that the dog was having a bad time because they play rough. But then one
Yeah.
day he got on the phone and was just talking on the phone, and the dog just came up and bit him in the stomach out of nowhere. And I was like,
Thought he was playing.
yeah, you kind of had that one coming.
Yeah.
I was like, you can't be mad.
Yeah.
You had that one coming.
That's rough.
But yeah, full baseball catcher uniform.
Just to play with the dog.
Yeah, including, well, dude, he'd go hard.
Yeah.
I had this one client who told me that his dad was a real savage, and that he had a German Shepherd, and once a year he would, and he swore up and down that this is true. Once a year, the dad, just to like get in touch with his primal nature, would get in the cage with the dog and fuck with it till it would attack him, which took a while because the German Shepherd's not going to attack its owner.
Yeah.
It takes a lot.
Yeah.
So it would take like a good 15 minutes of like prodding the dog until it finally went full beast, and then they would fight. And once a year, it was like he swore up and down, and then his band members swore up and down. They're like, this guy's dad is a total savage
That's
motherfucker.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
That
sounds terrible.
Annual German Shepherd cage fight.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I would never in a million years do that. You can
No.
pay me enough money to do that.
Nope.
So what have you been up to?
Aside from not having a dog,
Yeah, aside from that.
I love dogs though. I do like dogs. Don't peg me as a
Good. Good.
anti-dog person. I have no problem with dogs.
Anti-dog people are weird. And
I'm an anti-bad dog owner,
same here.
as everyone should be.
those
Then there'd be no bad dog owners. No, I've just been making records, man. A lot of stuff coming out later this year. Had some cool stuff that was on hold for a while that came out earlier this year, though, that I was stoked about. Oh man, I'll probably forget some stuff, but the new Get Scared record that came out this year on Fearless, I was really stoked about because we recorded that a couple years ago, and for one reason or another, it got put on hold. I had a few records like that.
That's always a bummer.
Yeah, it was wild. But I'm really glad it's out because it's an awesome record and it got really good reception.
How's the band?
They are on hiatus currently. I don't know what the status is, but
well, I don't know if it's related to the record being on hold, but that's a band destroyer.
Yeah, I think it was the other way around in this case. The record was on hold because there was some inner things happening with the band that I won't get into because that's not my business. But I'm just glad
smart label.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think just there was some stuff that happened, and so it made more sense to hold off on the release on the business side of things. But I'm glad it's out. That's all that matters. I'm stoked that record's out. A new Gavin Dance single called Headhunter that came out this year and has an amazing video. Super, super cool. I mixed the new Issues record this year, and they have a new single called Tapping Out that just came out, produced by Howard Benson. It's a super cool record. Just mixed the new Tiny Moving Parts album that is coming out on Hopeless. Really cool band from Minnesota. Just like 3-piece tapping guitar player sings and shreds at the same time type of stuff. Just mixed their record. They just had a single come out. And then I've been writing and working with a band called Ashland. That's really awesome. That stuff will probably come out later this year. A bunch of cool stuff. Some stuff I can't talk about, which is a bummer, but it'll be when it comes out, I will, and it's rad. And I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting that's like important.
Can we talk about Gavin Dance for a second?
Yeah.
That band is weird, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're just an odd band.
Yeah, they're an outlier for sure. They're their own thing.
Isn't it strange how big they are, considering how strange their music is?
I mean, it's not really strange to me because...
what part's not strange to you?
The fact that they're popular. Because they've been like a slow grower for so long.
Fair enough.
They're one of those bands that, I don't know. I think about what our expectations are now for success and how things worked like in the 90s or before, or even the early 2000s, where bands could keep putting out records. And if it wasn't like a massive record, the label would still put out another record. And there were bands there were some weird bands that are popular or were like popular Primus, at that time.
Mr. Bungle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's stuff like Primus and Mr. Bungle that like, their first record had a lot of followers and stuff. Same with Gavin Dance. His first record was decently popular within a certain scene, but they just kept making records and cool records that were true to who they were, and the population just kept growing. And because Gavin Dance never really strayed from who they were while constantly changing 3 vocalists, but they still kept an identity and never really like made a fast grab for cash or anything. And I think that paid off for them because because they never lost fans. They just gained fans. And they also, aside from that, the part that is weird, that is why they're successful, doesn't seem weird to me, is that they put out, 9 new albums in 10 years or something like that. 2007, 2012 years, they've put out 9 albums.
That's prolific.
And good albums. Yeah. None of them are phoned in. Like, they're all good albums. Like, the band has over like 100 songs that they can play. So they've just been constantly putting out. They're kind of like a blend of the new and the old, because the other thing that we all know now is that constant content is really important. And if any band has had constant new content, it's that band.
I guess that makes perfect sense. And those bands from the 90s, like Primus and Bungle, first of all, let it just be said, they were on major labels.
A big part. Yeah, they were.
How crazy is that? But they were on major labels, and also, those bands also, they never really lost fans. And to this day, I don't think they really lost fans. And they kept putting out stuff that was different. Some of them took longer breaks than others, but
they were true to themselves.
Yeah, always.
Even when stuff was different, it was it was still those bands, and the identity was there for sure.
Which is actually kind of crazy if you consider how some bands can change their sound 15% and people are like, you lost your identity, you sold out. And then some bands can do like 180 style shift and people accept it because it still feels like them.
Yep.
What do you think that is?
I think it's the honesty behind it. And I hate to say it because I do think, so I don't mean like honesty as in like honest lyrics and honest stuff like that. I think the reason you have to change, I think the reason it works is that, and of course there's always exceptions to the rule, but a lot of times the reason it works is because it's really what the artist is feeling in their heart, like sound wise, like this is what we want to do and we believe in it. It's not like you can say, hey, I want to go from being like a deathcore band and I want to write pop songs. And you could put out something that deathcore fans are like, this is pretty fucking cool actually, because I like the way this guy's brain works. I like, you know what I mean? Like I don't know if this has ever actually happened or could really happen, but it's just an example of where like, if you like the way an artist's brain works, if they're doing something that's true to their own art, there's a good chance you're still going to like it. But what happens is that even sometimes people think they're being honest, artists think they're being honest, and they'll go, hey, we're tired of being poor. We want like a quote unquote radio hit. We want something, you know, that benefits us financially. And when you start worrying too much about the financial stuff, like you can sit and write an honest song lyrically and melodically, but if you're motivated by money, a lot of times I think fans hear that, whether they know that's what they're hearing or not. I think they hear a little bit of like people being a little bit dishonest to themselves about what they want. And or sometimes it just, there's other things that, man, I think one of the biggest things, I don't know if there's something else you want to say about that, but what I think of a lot of times when fans go, oh, that band sold out, you know, what happened to the one record I liked? Like, why don't they sound like that anymore? And you look at a band and you go, oh yeah, they just got poppy, or, oh, they got this or that. A lot of times it's not the label, it's not the producer, it's not the singer. A lot of times what happens is bands lose their main songwriter. Or one of the main influences that was part of what people really liked. And that changes, and it changes the sound, and bands shift. And that happens a lot where like,
I know that like all too well,
Yeah, you look at certain bands and that happens, but then also they end up doing really well with this new guy that isn't part of the history of the band, but is super talented and helps the band, helps elevate the band in a different way to a different fan base in a different direction. It still works out for the band, but fans are sitting there and they just go, oh, the band sold out. We don't like this. Why'd they do that? It's dishonest. And to me, that's not dishonest. That's just life change. And that's stuff so I just don't want people to get me saying, you know, oh, we totally changed, or, you know, fans are going to like it as long as people are being honest. There's other factors that factor into that. And a lot of times it's member changes and dynamic changes
make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, you know, before I understood this, I mean, I was always loyal to like the lineups I liked when I was a kid of bands. And I always kind of felt like new lineups were like I wasn't watching the real band I loved.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was cool, but not that cool.
Yeah.
And,
I was the same for
and
sure.
then for a while I was like, why should it matter?
Yeah.
Like I'm just being petty. But now I don't think I was being petty. I think I was actually on the right path because a certain lineup creates a certain sound that's based on the people that are there at that point in time.
Yep.
And then when you change those people, it's not that what comes after is necessarily bad. Sometimes it is, but not necessarily.
No,
in some
sometimes
ways it could get better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's not the same. And same doesn't mean better or worse. It's just not the same.
Yep.
So I guess if you connected with something, then if something else is not the same, I guess it's just not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. And I think I felt that way. And I used to, like when I was way younger, like when I was in my teens, I would say things like, I don't like this band anymore. Or just feel like I lost allegiance to certain bands because of member changes and stuff. And other bands not. Sometimes it isn't that big of a deal. But the thing I realized over time, like even in my early mid-20s, is that I'm not even really, like, especially now, being a little bit older, I don't consider myself a fan of bands as much as I'm a fan of albums. And people are like, what's your favorite band? Or like, and it's really hard for me to pick any band ever that made 10, like ever, like that I could say every album they made was amazing. They exist. There's bands I feel that way about, but I think in reality, I'm a fan of certain moments in time. And it was made by the band, but it was really more about this certain group of people, or even just a certain thing they were feeling or did at the time. Because it doesn't even have to be member changes. Like, you can like 2 records a band did back to back and nothing before and nothing after. I mean, I feel that way a lot about a lot of bands. And so I can kind of consider myself more a fan. Yeah, and change producers, or just like, or things change. Literally,
clean,
like,
stop doing drugs.
You stop doing drugs, or honestly, I just feel like,
or start doing drugs.
Yeah, or start doing drugs, or just like maybe it wasn't the band that I loved, and it was just this thing that happened a moment in time. I mean, the other thing that plays into that I learned as a producer and someone who's around the music business for a long time. When I was younger, I never understood why. I noticed that I always liked bands like first or second record. And then, or whatever their first popular record was always the one I ended up liking the most. And at first I remember thinking it was because it was the record I was like force-fed first. And then as I started working around artists and working in the music industry, I realized that I think a lot of times I liked the first record that got big because that record had so much time to be written and developed. And a lot of those songs on bands' first records are like little pieces and chunks of things that people thought of like their whole freaking life. Like that first album or the second or the first big album, a lot of times is like all these little tidbits of ideas from like your whole freaking childhood, and you put everything into that first album. And then you go on tour for 2 years and you never get a break, and then they go make another album. And then you make another album, and a lot of bands succeed in it and do a good job, but I think I realized that I just was a fan of like that point in time and where those people were as human beings and what they did together, and not always as much as like, that I love that guy's guitar playing, so I'll listen to anything he does. It was more just like how everything came together.
If you're like most producers, you're dialing in drum sounds the old-fashioned way, by trial and error, swapping out drums, heads, and mics until you finally find something that works, oftentimes for several exhausting and tedious days. Sounds familiar, right? And I guess I could be exaggerating by saying finding something that works. Sometimes you're just plinking around forever and never find anything that works. But you know what? It does not have to be painful. Ultimate Drum Production is our course that teaches you the scientific method for dialing in the perfect drum sound on the very first try. That's correct, the first try. It explains in extreme detail the sonic character of every single component of drum sound, with exhaustive profiles of every kind of drum head, shell material, bearing edge, and hoop, as well as ridiculously detailed tutorials on mic selection, placement, and room choice. And when you understand drum tone at such a fundamental, insanely deep level, it's like having a set of tone Legos that you can use to easily build the sound you hear in your head. You don't need to guess and check. You just assemble the building blocks however you want. To find out more and get access to this incredible course, head over to ultimatedrumproduction.com and we'll see you in class.
I think it's a combination of what you just said, the tidbits of all the best stuff put together over years, and then also a little bit of experience. So it's usually not the first record.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like the second or third, usually. I mean, sometimes it's the first record to come out on a label.
Yeah.
But it's generally not the first thing the band ever did.
No, or as like people by themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
and there's a honeymooning period that's happening there too.
Exactly.
A lot of times.
So the band, it's like a combination of things. It's like the perfect cooking time for all these ideas that
It
have
is
come
perfect
together.
cooking time is the exact way to put it.
Yeah, plus experience of the band to where they aren't green anymore, and then they still have that fire inside that doesn't, because success will sometimes, it's not that it kills your fire, but I think when you become successful, sometimes you lose your fire for the thing that made you successful because you conquered it, and you're ready to move on to something else. It's very natural. So I think they still have that original fire, like something to prove. Plus what you said, all those years of putting those ideas together, and they're not green anymore. It's just like the perfect storm.
Yep.
It's usually album 2, 3, or 4, I've noticed.
Yep.
Usually not 1.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes.
It depends. It depends on, I mean, I'm sure it depends on the situation, because I do like a lot of first albums for certain bands, but they were definitely bands where, you know, they're not like 17-year-olds. They're like 25-year-olds that were in other bands and had other failures and had experiences and somehow just ended up in the right place, the right time to make the good record, even though it's like under that label, it was under that name of band. It was the first, their technical first record, but you find out like, oh, this dude was in another band with a bass player for 7 years.
Oh yeah,
or
there's a big band like that now. Have you heard of Bad Wolves?
I've heard of them.
They're I mean, it's not like my style of stuff, but they're very, very good at what they do, and I'm friends with a lot of them. I've known a lot of them for years, but like drummer was in Devil Driver for 10 years. Guitar player was in God Forbid for 10 years. Their singer has been in lots of bands. Like, so these are all very, very seasoned guys who have made lots of records and been on lots of tours. And so they put this band together, and their first record has blown up. But I mean, it's not really their first time making a record. It's like their 7th or more.
Yeah.
Like combined, they've made tons of records and successful records too.
Yeah.
So it's not really their first
exactly.
record.
Yep.
Only under that name.
Yep.
Do you think that something you said was interesting? So sometimes you would lose your interest in a band based on a change. But earlier we were talking about Gavin becoming more successful even through changes. What do you think that's all about?
I think there's a lot of things. I mean, I think part of it is I'm sure part of it for the band is like the rejuvenation with the like, okay, new singer, like we can write differently for how this person sings, and like
sometimes
we
that's
can. It's like a little bit of a reinvention. Sometimes it's a nightmare, but they've done a good job of like pairing themselves with the right people. And also, I think honestly, Tillian, like working with Tillian on his solo stuff and just like working with him in other bands, he is an amazing songwriter and musician on his own. So I think there's a mutual respect there. That. Not that any of the other singers, I mean, all that band's singers are super talented, but I think like their third singer, Tillian, was actually like the ultimate pairing with that band. And I think that Tillian joining the band has brought even more success for that band than I think they could even imagine that they wouldn't have with any other singer. And I think they just kind of like leveled up in a way that was like bizarre and like just kind of made the right moves at the right time. And bringing Tillian in was awesome. And the other thing, and now they're on like 1, 2, 3, 4, like they've done 4 records with Tillian now. And I can say for sure Will, like one of the main songwriters, the guitar player, and Tillian are 2 guys that just can't stop writing music. Like they write so much music because they're just like, they emit musical ideas, and
so they
it just doesn't stop. So
basically.
Yeah. And so they like, it's really good because, all the other dudes are totally immersed in music as well. They all play music for a living, and they're all in other bands and like just play music nonstop. But I think one of the biggest things is Will and Tillian being like song machines in a positive way, that they just like have never ending awesome ideas. That just keeps good songs coming. I've met very few people like either of them, and the fact that the two of them are in a band together just is bananas, and why they can write songs so quick. I read, sometimes you'll see like new Dance Gavin Dance single, and then like before it's even out, half the Twitter comments are like, "You just put out an album, don't make this one shitty, don't just shit out another album." And then
it's like, have we ever done that?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like they make an album every year. Like they never just shit out an album. Like you like the last album, which was number 7. Like, it's funny how that is. And then they never do. They never put anything out subpar. Like it's always awesome. But it's cool and it's unique. They're definitely outliers.
So that reminds me of like you said before, the modern version of like Primus, Mr. Bungle type bands.
Yeah.
Even like Tool maybe. But
Tool is more comparable to me.
One of those bands.
Because they're not as weird as Primus or Mr. Bungle.
No, Mr. Bungle and Primus are fucking weird.
But they are like cult following, like those two bands.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
No, I mean Dance Gavin Dance is pretty weird, but not like Mr. Bungle is super vulgar and like fucked up. Like
I know.
Some of those lyrics
Bungle,
on that first album are like, holy shit.
Yeah,
it's next level.
It's wild
still.
For sure.
Yeah, they're not like that, but I still count them in like the non-normal music that got big somehow.
Yeah.
But the thing is, on the Tool thing, and on the topic of new versus old, so Tool notoriously has taken forever between records.
True.
Apparently, there's another one.
Comp.
Apparently, there's another one coming.
9 years later.
Yeah.
No, was 10,000 Days the last record?
No, 2005 or 6.
Yeah.
So longer. But that one also took a long time between that one and the one before.
Lateralis.
Yeah, right.
And Inema was like 97.
But people were okay with that. I wonder if a band now that has the cult following, if Dance Gavin Dance was like, we're taking a break for 5 years.
Yeah.
Or 6 years or something, would their crowd still care in 5 or 6 years, like the Tool crowd would?
I think they would. I feel like they would, just because with the Tool thing, people just want more. And with Dance Gavin Dance, people still want more, and even though they're expecting it quickly, I think they're the rare kind of band that would like have just as big of an album if they waited 5 years. I could be way wrong. I mean, the market is so different now. Honestly, right. I'm not even sure how big. Like, I'll be curious to see how big this Tool record is. Like we talk about it, like because I remember how big Tool was, but I'm just curious to see how it charts. How
I wonder if nobody's going to care. Not nobody. I don't mean nobody, but nobody compared to
the previous
biggest band in the world status.
Yeah,
like will they still be biggest band in the world status?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. I'm actually very curious about it because I think about this new versus old stuff a lot, and I've always kind of felt like the old bands are immune from it to a degree. Like if they got to a certain level before the industry changed, they could kind of coast. Like not coast, but they'll be all right. Like Dream Theater, for instance.
Yeah,
I'm never a fan of theirs, but I've always paid attention to them. They've just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, very loyal following.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also because they were big before the shift.
Yeah.
And so they've been insulated from it. But I wonder if a band that got big before the shift took 13 years off, if people would still care.
But they got big after the shift?
No, they got big before the shift. but like big.
Oh, I see.
Like,
I see.
Yeah,
what you're
like
saying.
a band that was
so
like
Tool, like the Tool thing.
Yeah, like biggest band in the world status.
I have no idea. We're about to find out.
Yeah,
maybe might be another 5 years.
20 years later.
Yeah, I think
I want to know.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting too because there's also like their fan base, and same with Dream Theater and a lot of bands from that era. Buying the album was kind of a ritual. So I feel like it could go either way. Like Tool could have these like crazy sales that you're like, what the hell? They sold more physical copies than anyone this year, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Because all their fans are from that era where like buying physical copies was a ritual. And, I think Tool putting out an album could spark some nostalgia and some like need to feel that feeling again in a lot of people. So I could see that happening. I could also see them having just like abysmal sales because
abysmal for them.
For them. Yeah. Not for normal people. Like they're not going to sell like 1,000 records first week.
No,
it's not going to be like
no.
that.
But what if it's 20,000? Which
I
would
could
be
see that.
Which would be amazing for most bands, but for Tool,
I could see that.
Yeah,
That's the thing. I have
too.
no idea.
I wouldn't be surprised if they opened at 20 or something like even 50. I wouldn't be surprised. Something that's like low for a band of that size.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised if what you said happened, like old school style sales.
Yeah, there was just somewhere. Yeah, and it's not going to, it would never be the same as it was. But for the current market,
500,000 first week.
No, that's not going to happen. But for the market, like I could see them like just having like a blip in the chart that goes way up of like physical album sales, and you're like, what the hell is that? Oh, Tool released their first album in 12 years, and all these all these 90s kids went and bought CDs. Also, a lot of it'll have to do with the marketing because I could also see Tool pulling the like, oh, hey, our album's out.
Yeah, zero marketing.
No physical copies, or it came out today or something, and then that would obviously affect the numbers, and I have no idea.
The no marketing thing. I have encountered quite a few old timers who have tried doing that, and it's failed so hard, and they think they're being smart. I've encountered a few actually in the past couple years who are like in big bands from the 90s who are like, we're going to do something real cool. We're not going to market this until the day it comes out. And then it's just going to be like, bam, and everyone's going to be like, whoa. But nobody.
There's no bam.
Yeah, there's no bam. There's no whoa.
There's no bam. It's hard to bam with algorithms, like social media algorithms, the way they are. Even if you sponsor stuff, like you can't just like bam. It's not like when there was a TV. So like.
No bam, no whoa.
When the Mars Volta, De Laus, and the Comatorium came out, they kind of did something like that. There wasn't a ton of marketing, and then they just went crazy on TV marketing like 2 or 3 days before the record was released. And when the main form of marketing was TV marketing, that worked because everyone was watching the same 2-3 channels.
When was this?
2002.
Oh, well, yeah.
3 or something. But it wasn't like, because a lot of times there was like a poster up in the record store a month before with the date and stuff, and I didn't see a lot of that. It was just kind of out of nowhere. I always think of that record as really coming out of nowhere.
But you could do that back then.
You could do that because you weren't fighting algorithms or paying for sponsors that you have that aren't really always going where you think it's going. And that stuff does work, but if you don't have a marketing team and a real marketing plan, you don't even have a shot. Like it's not even going to work even if you do. Team. But yeah, even if you do, and honestly, if you had a really smart marketing team, they'd probably be like, yeah, don't do that. Like certain artists, sure, it's cool. But
one of the smartest marketing things I've seen in a long time, I actually showed this to Finn, and he made a video about it, was Behemoth did this. Behemoth are amazing at their marketing. They're just so damn good at it. I don't know how familiar you are or not with them.
Not super familiar.
They're one of those bands that, like, if you're not familiar with that style, then it just seems like another one of those bands. But they're one of those bands that makes a lot of money and, like, they fucking kill it. They crush it. They do real well. They do better than the other bands in that style by a long shot. And it's because the main dude is so smart, unbelievably smart. Like, he should be a politician, I think. One of the most charismatic, intelligent, just on it people I've ever met in my life, which is how they get tours with bands that are not in their style, not satanic, not like any of that. But what they did was, it was kind of fucked up, but it was so smart. They put up this website where you're supposed to read this satanic prayer. If you want to hear the song, you have to. It shows you this satanic prayer that's part of the lyrics to the song, but you have to say it, and it records you saying it. And not until you say what it tells you to say does it show you the song. So you learn the lyrics to the song before you even hear the song.
Yeah.
Which then obviously that makes it easy to put it on shirts, to make tattoos out of it, to like get it chanted at shows.
Yep.
It's so smart. It was like the chorus of the song.
Yep.
But like, they put it in this like chant, like.
And it gives you something unique to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Like everyone's like, you know what these guys did?
Yeah.
Super weird.
But
they made everyone say a satanic prayer. Like,
but it's so smart.
Yeah,
it
it's great.
Total compliance out of their fans. So like, there's that psychological element of like, you're doing what we tell you to do. So we're in control here. You're learning our lyrics. So boom, we can market this shit to you. And here's your reward. You get to hear our song.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because sometimes, debuting a new song, no one really cares.
Yeah.
So like they did all this, like they made people jump through hoops in order to just hear the song. Anyhow, I thought it was super brilliant. Whenever I see bands doing stuff like that are bands that people care about, I'm just like, hell yeah, they get it.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yep.
Sometimes you see local bands do it and it doesn't work because nobody cares.
Yeah.
And it's like, wah, wah, wah. But, but when it's a band that somebody cares about.
Yeah, you have to know your audience. I mean, that's part of marketing. Like, there's ways that you can market for a virtually unknown band to become a known band. I mean, it happens. It happens every year. I mean, there's those bands that do that, and certain marketing teams or labels know how to make that happen. But you have to know your audience, and that's basically what you're saying. Is like, you don't know your audience, and you've got like 5 people coming through your page, and you try to do like a surprise campaign or something. It's like everyone's like, "Oh, I thought you broke up." Like,
yeah, exactly. But there's this band that's known for being like this satanic band, and like has this vibe about them, and people feel like they're legit and really, really dark and all those things. All that imagery is who they are.
Yeah.
And so that marketing campaign it was creepy and it fit perfectly. It was totally congruent with their image. Like, it was just marketing, but it was so congruent with their image that it didn't feel like marketing.
Yeah.
Actually, that's why I showed it to Finn, because we do marketing. And so we're like, wow, that's good. It's good when it doesn't feel like marketing.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So Tool, I think, if they wanted to just come out with a BAM, they'd have to do something like that appropriate for them.
Yeah.
Which they have that kind of mystery to them too, so they could easily do it if they had the right brain.
And they've always had a visual component. Every one of their records, everything, music videos, everything they've ever released, even their live show, has heavily revolved around some kind of visual component. So I have a hard time believing that they would just, like, now that I think about it, I can't imagine them just like dropping something. Like, there's going to be some kind of like hint or like something leading up to it that gets people interested, because they've always had some, because like, you remember Inema had the like 3D, the CD cover was like the 3D thing that you move it and it changes what it's doing.
Yeah, that was cool.
Which was the first time anyone did anything like that. And Lateralis just had all the interesting like anatomical drawings and stuff. I don't even know what you would call that type of artwork, but just super interesting stuff. So they've always had a visual component. So I have a hard time believing they would just be like, here's the music. Like, they're a very like thought out artistic band.
What about
who knows?
What about the new issues? How's that?
It's good. It's different. I don't even know how to explain it.
I figured it would be a little different.
Yeah, it's way different, but it's still very true to the band.
Is it still Justin Timberlake meets metal?
Yes. It's groovier than any of their other records.
Awesome.
Man, I wish I could remember. I thought of a good way to describe it at one point, because I think a lot of people are expecting it to be super pop or like super prog, but it's not. I'm just excited for people to hear it because it's freaking awesome. It's amazing songs, and it's a style of music that I don't think really exists yet. It's really cool.
Saying that
it's
even
like,
after they already invented something.
Yeah, they've definitely. I mean, it's still issues. Like if you heard it and didn't know who it was, you're not going to be like, "Who's this?" I mean, it's definitely issues, but it's really cool. It's very groove oriented. It's rad.
I remember a few years before they came out, I was talking to somebody, and I remember telling them that I really felt like someone has to come along and do legitimate pop with breakdowns and stuff.
Yeah.
It's such an obvious pairing.
Yeah.
Because like around that time before them, dubstep was big, and dubstep, like the best of dubstep, not the stuff that like gets made fun of, but the best of it was basically heavy music in electronic form. And it was like, well, if that can happen, you can almost hear how pop could blend with heavy music too.
Yep.
Someone is going to come around eventually. And then Issues came around. I was like, that's the band. They did it.
Well, and people were doing the whole like, it was like the equivalent of the 90s, like clean guitar, distorted guitar, clean guitar, distorted guitar. People were doing like the bridge is a pop part, or like the verse is a pop part, and then it's a rock chorus or it's a breakdown chorus. But Issues actually like just made whole songs that were like a pop song and a heavy song playing at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how they changed it. And that was like the next step for that type of music.
Yeah, it's totally melded together. It wasn't
instead of just on and off.
Yeah, and I always felt for the most part that the on and off bands, I mean, there's some great ones.
Yeah.
But when they'd go pop, they wouldn't really go pop. They'd go like half pop or something.
Yeah.
Like I felt like Issues was fucking pop.
Well, and
hell.
Tyler, I mean, Tyler's he just has like a pop style.
Yeah.
So it lends them to doing that, and not just being like a rock guy singing over a pop song.
Yeah,
sort of
it's
thing.
legit, and it's very sophisticated.
Yeah, it's good. Tyler's really, really good. I mean, everybody in that band is so ridiculously talented. They're a very talented band. But the new record's very cool.
Are those your favorite types of bands to work with? Those like genre bender, like prolific? I know Issues took a break for a while, but I know that like Tyler has been making music the whole time.
Tyler?
Oh, which Tyler?
Ty or Tyler? The singer?
Sorry,
or the DJ?
The DJ.
He has his own stuff. He's involved in the new record.
Okay.
I think he's already announced that on Twitter. He's on. I wasn't involved in the production, so I don't know how many songs, but he is involved for sure.
Yeah, and he's prolific as fuck.
Yeah, they all are. Well, his twin brother is the bass player.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and he is
also some
prolific.
families.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and their sister's an awesome singer. There's another. They've done some music like all together that's really good.
What is it with some families, like the Churkos too? Like what?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just in your blood.
Yeah,
I think about that a lot. I think about like obviously it's environment, but there just has to be something like
there's another Churko.
Loves music.
There's another. There's Kevin's brother is the guitar player for Shania Twain.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, he's like
that's awesome.
He's like a successful session guitar player in like country pop.
That's rad.
Yeah, and I believe that Kane's sister manages the business.
Nice.
So like they're all in on it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, quite the power family.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Kind of crazy. I always wondered how it happens. Like nature or nurture, or just like the perfect combination of both.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's tough, especially as someone who has small children. I do think about it all the time, and what decisions you make affect how they're going to be. Because obviously all your decisions affect them in some way or another. It might not be a major effect, but it will affect them. And it's a weird thing to think about when you're in a business that consumes so much of your time. It's interesting that you still have kids that grow up to do, like, same with musicians and touring musicians and stuff. It's interesting that they still look to their parents and say, I want to be a part of that. I want to do that.
That's what my dad
because it's
did.
not because it's not like you're necessarily like around all the time showing them this stuff.
No, my dad was gone all the time, always gone. 3 weeks a month, most months. So, yeah, no, you're right. It's interesting. Do you how old are your kids?
1.5 and 3.5.
Oh, so still a little too young to really.
Yeah, they're not gonna. My son has kind of grown. Well, my daughter's been singing since she was like 9 months. It's like the weirdest thing. Before she could talk or anything, she would sing the melodies on the cartoons, but like on her own. Like she was singing the Paw Patrol theme at like 8 or 9 months, and it was weird. It was super weird because our son didn't talk until he was like 2, and she sings like anything she hears, she'll just start singing it. Like she has the music in her. And that's what's a trip to me is like,
wow.
It's just, you don't know what. And then my son has recently become very interested in guitars. He'll come out here whenever he can. Like if I don't lock the door, he'll just bust in. And like a month ago, when it kind of started, 2 months ago, I was out here and he came in and I was just working alone. And I turned around and he's reaching for like a 1972 Les Paul. And I'm just like, the easiest guitar to break on the freaking planet.
Yeah.
And I would just literally dove across the room and was like, stop, no, any other guitar, bolt on. Any bolt-on guitar you can mess around with, you're not going to break it. But he's like, he loves just like setting the guitar on the ground. He'll grab a guitar pick, which also he calls a toothpick, which confused me for a while. And he's like, Daddy, can I have a toothpick? And I'm like, a sharp stick? No, you can't have a toothpick. And he's like, why need a toothpick? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he'd find a guitar pick and be like, a toothpick. And
there you go.
Start playing. I'm like, oh, you want a guitar pick?
Man.
But yeah, he loves playing the guitar on the ground. And so I don't, you don't know how much that is about music or just that it's a weird thing or I don't know, but
sounds like.
But my whole family has
like
been musicians like for years. So like for generations. So it's like one of those things. Like my dad has a guitar that was my great grandpa's guitar. Like we just always played music. And so I don't know what's in your blood. What's like,
I'd be curious to know if your daughter's got perfect pitch. It's
doesn't
probably
yet,
too early to tell, but I'd be curious to know if she's already picking songs out.
Yeah, and
That's
and they're
crazy.
obvious. That's what's weird. That's what's a trip is it's not like she's just like humming, and she wasn't singing the lyrics. I mean, she was singing Paw Patrol, and it sounded like Papa Da, but it was very clearly the melody and longer parts of it than you would expect. Like she would literally sing a whole section of the song, and it's just like sitting there with, you can't see my face right now, but just like being like, this is crazy that you're singing like the hook and then going into the verse and you're like barely crawling.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I don't know. All kids are different, and I know other kids that, yeah, I mean, it's not a podcast about kids.
No, it's not. But
stuff. But it'll be interesting.
It's not a podcast about kids, but I have talked to lots of parents on the podcast. Like, actually talked to Kevin about Kane, and about this stuff, and definitely this topic comes up when it's relevant. Just because I'm fascinated by it, just for my own personal reasons.
Yeah,
because I went into music probably because of my dad.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to me. So I've always wondered what's nature, what's nurture. Like, did Kane just pop out talented, or is it because he was in the bunker with Mutt Lange and his dad?
Yeah.
Or both?
Yeah.
Probably both.
Yeah. Probably both.
Probably. More than likely both.
Yeah.
But I've always just been curious about how much is genetic. Is talent genetic at all? And how much is what you put into it. Because, I mean, I've known lots of talented people who didn't put in any work and they kind of sucked.
Yeah.
In the end.
Yeah.
In the end, they could only get so far.
Yeah.
But that innate part of it, I think the talent is the innate part.
Yeah.
I've always wondered if that comes from something genetic, and then also you meet people who are the first in their bloodline to be a musical prodigy. So where does that come from?
People that are like, my dad was a doctor, and I'm a freaking shredder guitar player.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Man, speaking of Les Pauls being breakable, God. So when I was 13, my first electric guitar was a Squier, but I had my heart set on a Les Paul Studio.
Yeah.
Because it was what I figured I could afford at 13 after working an entire summer.
Yeah.
And I got it after working an entire summer. And it was such a big deal. And the first day I had it, I took it to a friend's house and we fucked around with it, played it, and then I leaned it up against the wall.
Oh, no.
And it slipped.
Yeah.
And the neck just popped right off. Day one.
Yeah.
Day one.
That's awful, man. Dude, I've seen some Les Pauls go down.
Dude, it just came clean off. Just like, it barely tapped the...
They're basically built, like if you know anything about physics, they're built to break when they fall. Like they're literally, like the way the headstock is shaped and the weight of the body combined with a super thin neck, it's like literally just built to...
Yeah, it didn't fall hard.
Yeah. Yeah, but the body's so heavy that it like the neck is like a lever that just slams down, and then the headstock bears so little weight because it's angled so hard. They're like every time I look at one, I'm just like, it's beautiful, but it was just built to break. Like
it was tragic.
No give from the neck being a bolt on. Like Fenders are the other way around. It's like I don't think I've ever seen a Fender where the headstock broke. I've seen the necks break.
Oh, no,
someone
this neck
broke one.
This neck came clean off the body.
Oh, the neck
on the
came
Les
off.
Paul. Yeah.
Oh my! It wasn't the head. It wasn't the headstock.
It was the fucking neck.
Well, that's a different.
Right off the body.
I feel like you should have gotten your money back on that.
Yeah.
Sounds like a guitar that was built wrong.
And to your point, I actually years later tried to break the Squier. Like after I had a few more guitars and was like, never going to play this guitar again. And
the neck
I like Nirvana.
Off. Yeah.
I want to know what it's like to break a guitar. I couldn't break it. I tried. Like I slammed it into concrete. Like I tried. We jumped up and down on the neck.
Yeah.
It wouldn't break.
And even if they do, the only thing that ever happens is the bolts just strip out of the neck.
Maybe that happened.
Yeah. Like
it did, that's hard to
do too. That's hard to do too. But like it's not like the wood is going to break anywhere.
It didn't.
I
couldn't believe it. It took a fucking beating.
I had an old K guitar that I broke one time on stage.
It's fun.
It was a lot of fun. But I don't think I'd ever do it again. But yeah, it was a good time. By on stage, I mean a garage with like 30 kids in it.
It's still
not actually on stage.
Do bands still do that?
I feel like a lot of bands look at that as wasteful and a lot of it is. I know it's funny because like I remember being a kid and thinking it was like so rock and like badass and emotional, and now people are like, get control of your feelings. Like don't break something just because you're angry. Like, but back then, it was like, I don't know, it was just different. So it's interesting to see how like younger people's view of music and musicians and just like life in general is very different.
I remember seeing Bungle destroy all their shit once. It was amazing. Like diving into the drums and just like destroying them, destroying every instrument on stage.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is amazing. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I saw Nirvana do it too, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I don't think that's very cool anymore.
It's not cool at all.
It is totally a 90s kid thing.
Yeah. Big time. I know, and it's funny to like, if I look at it through someone else's lens, it's goofy. Like there's still a place in my heart for it, for sure. But it's like, it's hilarious. It's real dumb.
It's immature. It's stupid. It's wasteful.
Yeah.
Financially irresponsible. Like, and probably means that you've got some issues you really need to deal with, because if they come out in like your normal life, like against another person or against like your normal personal property, like could cause some real problems. But why was it okay for bands to do
it on stage? I don't know.
It's fucking awesome back then.
Yeah, it was great.
I think it's because there was an element to rock and metal and stuff that was unhinged, and that was maybe glorified, or maybe not glorified, but it was celebrated. That unhinged, like real element, like real shit by real people. Like to the point where they will fucking burn down everything right then and there. Where I'm not sure that now being unhinged is very cool.
No. And there's like I think a lot of, I don't know very many bands that go up on stage with like $100 guitars either. You know what I mean?
True.
Like there's definitely a thing about having the nicest stuff, which as an engineer and a producer, I love it.
That's very true.
Because it makes my life way easier. But like, you know, Kurt was up there with like $50 Univoxes that were like ripoffs of an already cheap guitar that he was breaking and stuff. Or like near the end, he was getting free Squires from Fender and stuff. But
so
like,
he wasn't breaking a $3,500 Mayones guitar and a Bogner.
He wasn't like breaking PRSs and putting, you know, I mean, if anyone is guilty, it's Jimi Hendrix for breaking those like super rare Marshalls and, you know,
were they super rare back then?
No, I'm joking about it now because in retrospect, you know, he's breaking like tens and thousands of dollars worth of stuff every time he broke stuff. You know, a 50 Strat, a 60 Strat, all that stuff. I'm sure we'll never look back on a Univox and be like, so much money.
I don't think so.
But I would love someone to like jokingly tally how like the current worth of everything that Jimi Hendrix destroyed.
Probably plan a retirement based on it.
Yeah, man, buy a castle. That stuff's worth a lot of money now.
So I don't miss that element, by the way. I feel like I don't look at the past and wish it was still here. Like
no, not at all.
So when I think to like rock in the 90s and how unhinged it was, and there were lots of things that were really terrible, like heroin being made cool, and stuff, like things like that. I don't. Right now, I think Xanax and pills are kind of made cool, but not really. There's a lot out there in the media and online about
to counter it.
Yeah, there's a huge movement.
Yeah, there wasn't so much other than like, you know, Nancy Reagan, but like
who gave a fuck?
But exactly. Like there was nothing that like reached out to the kids that was like a counterpoint that wasn't like the man, like Dare or
exactly.
You know,
Tipper Gore or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's all.
You can have rappers rapping about Xanax, but you also have a lot of people talking about, well, yeah, you're going to die too if you mix that with alcohol.
Yep.
And they make a big deal out of any time a celebrity dies from it.
Yeah, exactly. And sadly, the rappers are dying from it.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Awful. Yep.
But I feel like in the 90s, when they were making a big deal out of heroin with Alice in Chains, just talking about it openly. Like, I don't know if you ever saw this Ministry tour video that they made, this documentary on tour where they were just openly shooting up on it. I couldn't believe it. I saw it like a year ago, and they're like just sitting there backstage shooting up on video like nothing, like no big deal. That would not fly now.
No.
So I think in some ways, like when people talk about how like rock's gotten safe, I do agree, because I think back to that and it's like, yeah, that was way more unhinged.
Yeah.
But I don't miss it. I don't necessarily think that was cool.
No one needs to redo that.
Yeah, no.
It's, I mean, it was just a place and time. And I think that goes back to like what I was saying earlier about like, I'm more of a fan of albums than I am of a like band necessarily, even though I'm a fan of the band that made the album. But like, I see myself as like thinking more about the albums I love than specifically the bands I love. And it has to do with that, of like certain things happening at certain times, and same with genres of music. Like there's genres of music and people will complain that, oh, you know, this genre died. Like I miss this genre, but it's like, do you really want people to just like run it on forever? And You know, it's like
Yeah,
a show.
that-
It's
that
like
wouldn't work either.
it's like a TV show that just goes on and on and on, and you're like, they should have ended it at season 5. Like,
Yeah,
please
absolutely.
stop. So I never really find myself missing stuff like that.
Whenever I hear that about
think it's
bands
okay to
that are
move
still
on.
going, that were like maybe great at one point and then just kind of leveled off, and
Yeah.
people give them shit, and it's like, well, dude, they're not going to be between the ages of 20 and
Yeah.
33 forever.
Yeah.
And what do you expect?
Yeah.
Like, they're 45 now. They could probably start a company and fucking kill it and
Yeah.
do great and still have just as much fire. But like that kind of rage that goes into making that kind of music, like, it's age
Yeah.
appropriate.
And more power to the band if they are still enjoying what they're doing and
Yeah.
like still making songs that they love. Like, that's awesome. I'm definitely not saying the band should just like call it at some point. Like,
I don't think anyone gets to tell a band to call it.
Yeah, no, I think it's freaking great that bands do that, and some maintain success. Some have like weird success after disappearing for a long time.
There's a band called Cynic that did that. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They were one of the first prog death metal bands. They were around in the early 90s, and at the time they would tour with like Cannibal Corpse and stuff, but they didn't sound at all like that. They sounded like one of those bands you hear now with like vocoders and like
Yeah.
jazz arrangements and shit, and they'd get booed off stage and get shit thrown at them, and like
Yeah.
they lived in Florida and they moved to LA and just quit and just like went into the legit music industry and worked in like post houses and went and became like a session player, and they just had such a bad experience. And in like 2009 they reunited and were way bigger than they ever were in
Yeah.
the 90s, because I guess the public had caught up.
Yeah.
Prog metal was suddenly cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, like almost 20 years later,
Yep.
they found a place in the public's heart, which is kind of cool. But I don't think anyone has the right to tell a band to stop. But at the same time, I get it. Some bands are past the expiration date of their best material. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to come back probably,
Yeah.
but that's okay, because
Yep.
be happy you got what you got out
Yeah.
of them. Every artist has there's like a bell curve to or an arc, I guess, to
Yeah.
their output. And there's always going to be that peak where they're at their best.
Yep.
Like, everything's happening. It's different for everybody. Some movie directors, it could be in their 50s.
Yeah.
Or symphony conductors, it's usually in their 60s and 70s. But rock musicians, it's like 25 to 38, I think, is like that peak.
Yep.
And then after that, you're lucky if you get more great shit. But
Yep.
what do you expect?
Yep. I agree 100%.
Awesome.
It's
I'm glad. Thank you.
yeah.
I'm just
No, it's just I
you
think
for
about that
agreeing.
stuff all the time, and there's always like I could talk about it forever because there's always like people that have really interesting and bizarre career arcs. Like, I think about like Tom Petty has one of the most interesting and bizarrely long. So he's one of the only people that comes to mind that had a greatest hits album with like 15 tracks or something. And then had 3 albums that had like Billboard chart topping singles after his greatest hits album. That's weird.
Yeah,
That's
it is
super
weird.
weird. It's not like they put out a greatest hits album because the first album had a bunch of hits. Like, it's like if Third Eye Blind put out a greatest hits album, like 6 of those songs would just be off the first album. You know what I mean? And then sure, there's other stuff, but he had like 10 albums, had a bunch of hits on all those albums, put out a greatest hits, and then had a bunch more hits. It's like super weird, and had hits into his 50s.
Total outlier.
That are really good too. Yeah, like such a bizarre outlier of a career. Like even Michael Jackson didn't have a career like that. He probably had a greatest hits and then put out other stuff, but he was, popular since he was like 6 or something or 8. But
Paul McCartney did a little bit.
yeah, he would have
Yeah.
in his different obviously like Beatles' greatest hits, and then he has like hits with Wings and
Yeah,
all
Live and
kinds
Let
of
Die. and
yeah.
all kinds of.
Oh yeah, solo album stuff and
But geniuses are outliers.
yeah,
so.
yeah, totally. I guess what makes the Tom Petty thing interesting to me is it's like just him and his band. You know what I mean? There was never like a change that signified like the next chapter or new stuff. It was just like they just kept doing their thing, and people just kept liking it.
I don't know much about him, but what I wonder is, did he fit that rock star mold of like some kid that's on fire and has this fire they want to express, or was he more like a professional musician?
No, he was a fire you want to express. There's like a famous story about him negotiating his first real record deal with Capitol. He was on a bad record deal, but he went in as like a 19-year-old kid. And when they started trying to talk him down and he wanted different terms, he brought out a pocket knife and started carving the table in front of the label, because he's this country kid from fucking Florida somewhere, you know, that didn't give a fuck and was just like, I want what I want, and I'm going to sit here and whittle a hole in your table with my pocket knife until you give me what I want.
I heard that Sean Connery was that way. I was actually watching something about him last night as I was falling asleep. He was the first actor to get payment to come to him and not to his manager or agent.
Oh, interesting.
So it used to be that they would go to the agent, and then the agent would pay the talent.
Yeah.
So it would be funny business with that, obviously.
Yeah.
That still happens in the music industry with booking agents, where the booking agent collects the deposits and gets paid a lot of the time, and then will pay you. Sometimes it just depends. Sometimes you do collect your shit at the venue. It just depends. But there are cases where certain shows, like X number of shows, get the money gets forwarded to the agent, and then the agent will then decide when to pay you.
Yeah.
And some pay right away, and some make you jump through hoops. But anyway, Sean Connery was like a brawler, war hero, just like he was from like a poor neighborhood in Scotland. He was not like a refined like actor kind of dude.
Yeah.
And when they tried to play games with him, he just wouldn't take it. And he got brutal with them. And he changed that to where then he started getting paid. Then he would pay his team.
Yeah.
Which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
So some people...
That's the way it should have been.
I agree. Well, it takes people like that to... people who give no fucks.
Yeah.
So Tom Petty is one of those weirdos that it never died for him.
Yep. I think he just always loved it. And I don't know. Went through drug phases. He does have one really bad album that was like the peak of his cocaine use.
Well,
bad in my opinion. I think it still had one single on it. But
so in his case, the drugs made him worse.
Yeah. Well, probably made it better, and then at the peak of it, I'm sure there was a loss of control at some point.
See, that's so what's interesting to me about that is just that the arcs.
I mean, that happens to a lot of bands. They just don't come back from it.
Yeah, they take the drugs too far, and then
that's it.
They burned it out. Mm-hmm. The beginning of the drug use. I mean, I remember when I experimented. It was mind expanding at first. Yeah. Then you could see where, like in Berkeley days, then you could see the kids that would just keep going with it would just like destroy themselves. Yep. So I learned, but I feel like some people just don't learn. However, the thing that I think is interesting about the Tom Petty thing is that you can't like expect the same arc out of every artist. Like some people, their bizarre, greatness is going to be concentrated in a 3-year period.
Yep.
And that's it. And some it's going to be like Tom Petty the whole time.
Yep. Just cranking out hits for 3 decades or something.
It's pretty
4
phenomenal.
Almost. It's wild.
Well, cool.
I'm trying to think I
think it's a good place to stop it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you for doing the podcast again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
The Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast is brought to you by Shure, legendary microphones, cutting-edge wireless systems, premium earphones and headphones. Shure, the most trusted audio brand worldwide. For more information, go to Shure.com. To ask us questions, make suggestions, and interact, visit urm.academy and press the podcast link today.